Hello, I'm Jonathan, and I'm going to talk about colonialism, especially in two great stories: Heart of Darkness by Joseph Conrad and Things Fall Apart by Chinua Achebe. According to the website dictionary.com, colonialism is the control or governing influence of a nation over a dependent country, territory, or people, or even the system or policy by which a nation maintains or advocates such control or influence. But what exactly does colonize mean? To colonize is to control a nation, society, or small tribes. The colonizers talk to the colonized people about a new religion or a modern way of life. Then they start to explore their riches, such as metals, noble wood, and free workers, alias slavers. Historically speaking, Europe had its industrialization earlier than Africa, America, and other continents, which means that the European countries started to travel abroad through the ocean in order to expand their domains. So they discovered many other countries and hence started to colonize and explore them. Heart of Darkness is a story about Marlowe, a man who, in the beginning of the story, is in a boat and started to talk about an event of his life when he traveled through the Congo River to meet Kurtz, a well-known man by his ideas and abilities. He travels to 3 stations. When he was almost arriving at the third one, he and his crowd were attacked by some natives. After imagining that Kurtz was dead and seeing that in fact he was ill but alive, Kurtz and Marlowe talk for a while. Kurtz tries to flee during the night, but Marlowe prevents him, and they both go away from the island in the morning. Along the trip, Kurtz dies after saying, "The horror, the horror." It is remarkable that Kurtz were in the island in order to explore ivory and colonize the savage people, or if you prefer, the natives. Briefly summarizing, Things Fall Apart is a story about Okonkwo, a man who wants to be different from his coward father. He became a farmer and a respected warrior of the Umofia clan in Igbo society. Okonkwo had some disgusting actions such as beating one of his wives during the week of peace, taking part of the death of his, we may say, adopted son, and killing, by a misfortune, the son of Ogbuefi Ezeudu, one of the most respected village elder. Due to this last action, he and his family were exiled for 7 years, and when he returned, the Arab colonizer had changed the Igbo society where he lived. After seeing that he lost control over the inhabitants, Okonkwo hanged himself. Both authors portrayed colonization as an act of exploring all the natural resources from a land with the rotten pretext of preaching new ideas. In Things Fall Apart, it had a negative impact on the culture of the society, since the colonized people had to adhere their colonizer rituals and traditions, as well as their religions and beliefs. On the other hand, positive aspects may be highlighted, as the acceptance by the Church of twins, changing the belief of that society which took twins as cursed creatures. In Heart of Darkness, Conrad does not give floor to benefits from colonization, and it is crueler than in Things Fall Apart. Kurtz treats the natives as savages and slavers who need to be humanized and inserted in the European way of life. Their only utility was to carry and transport ivory from one station to another. Conrad goes deeper in his criticism and says in the book that colonialism is really about obtaining all of the natural resources of the land for profit and in the process. Achebe and Conrad have a lot in common. Both wrote about Europe colonizing Africa, colonization as an excuse to exploration of societies, racism towards black people, and the scars that a society may carry throughout its existence because of brutal colonization. They also have differences, and Things Fall Apart, we can feel the consequences of the colonization once the main character is within the colonized group of people and the writer of the book is a Nigerian who knows exactly what happened. However, in Heart of Darkness, we only see what is happening through the eyes of a white man that will not be affected by slavery nor brutal exploration. Also, the author is not an African man, so he may know what happened, but he did not feel the consequences exactly of the colonization. Now, take a look at these quotes which will exemplify some of the topics raised up in this video. Concerning the savagery of the natives according to Kurtz, here's a quotation from chapter 2, page 13, where Marlowe is talking about the book that Kurtz gave him after his death. This was the unbounded power of eloquence, of words, of burning noble words. There were no practical hints to interrupt the magic current of phrases, unless a kind of note at the foot on the last page, scrawled evidently much later, in an unsteady hand, may be regarded as the exposition of a method. It was very simple, and at the end of that moving appeal to every altruistic sentiment it blazed at you, luminous and terrifying, like a flash of lightning in a serene sky. Exterminate all the brutes. This quote from Things Fall Apart is about the cruelty of Igbo society towards twins. Obiorika remembered his wife's twin children, whom he had thrown away. What crime had they committed? The earth had decreed that they were an offense of the land and must be destroyed. And if the clan did not exact punishment for an offense against the great goddess, her wrath was loosed on all the land and not just on the offender. In sum, there are people who may feel annoyed by the huge criticism presented in both works. But as Achebe said in Things Fall Apart, if you don't like my story, write your own.
Hello, I'm Narjani, and I also will talk about colonialism issues. I'll compare two stories, The Dead by James Joyce and The Tempest by Shakespeare. Joyce's short story is the longest and the last one from the collection of Dubliners, published in 1914. In contrast, The Tempest is played by the famous one William Shakespeare. People believe that it was first published in 1610 or 1611. If you want more information on the Tempest plot, look on this summarized video. I will focus on the comparison between two characters in Joyce's short story and two characters on Shakespeare play. The idea is to reflect on the behavior that Gabriel and Miss Ivers have with their colonizer, as well as Ariel and the Caliban. On Joyce's short story, Ireland is reported through Gabriel's speech as the one with the virtue of hospitality, the same hospitality that brought strangers to its own land. For Joyce, it is not simple a matter of imperialist Britain performing acts of epistemological violence, annihilating Ireland's Gaelic past to simply incorporate all Ireland into an hegemonic discourse of the British nation. Joyce unhesitatingly agrees that it is the Irish themselves who have admitted the invaders into their land. This set shows a little bit about of the controversial behavior of Gabriel and Miss Ivers. Both of them can represent the colonized Ireland. This set shows a little bit about of the controversial behavior of Gabriel and Miss Ivers. Both of them can represent the colonized Ireland. Gabriel is the most loved nephew of Kate and Julia Morgan. He's a professor and part-time book reviewer who publishes on a weekly literary column. His ideas report unionist sympathies with the Great Britain. On the other hand, Miss Ivers reports a persistent nationalist figure who stresses out her opinion on recovery, her Irish identity. This difference can be analyzed as the two different behaviors that appear in Ireland after the Britain colonization. Gabriel accused Gabriel accused by Miss Ivers of a West Briton, a modern Irish who gives the hospitality for stranger people and culture, stranger country and language, and denied his own identity. Miss Ivers represented this new generation who wants their land back, having the right to recover the Gaelic language and the right to recover the government of their own country and produce and express their culture. The Tempest play was written earlier before than Joyce's story and has amount of studies on the colonizing view. But if we exchange the roles, it is possible to realize about similar contrasts on the behavior of Ariel and the Caliban. Ariel, a fierce and wicked sprite who does Prospero's bidding and is at times visible only to him. He becomes Prospero's slave because he was saved by Prospero. Ariel obeys all of Prospero's demands and is eventually granted freedom as the same way as Gabriel, who believes on the Great Britain as the better option of government to Ireland. Prospero is represented through the figure of a savior, the one who comes and turns that place better. He was eventually named an accidental missionary because of his care teaching language and religion to the Caliban, the dehumanized native. This idea, in parallel, also shows the way that the Caliban in sea, a devil, a born devil, on whose nurture can never stick, on whom my pen's humanly taken, all lost, quite lost. And as with age his body uglier grows, so his mind cankers. And finally, I can say that the Caliban also could be compared with Miss Ivers, mostly because of his attitude on take his land back, and this feeling of revenge on Prosperous, who took from him what deserves him by right.
If you be the last of our grim, as I suppose you not to be, come tell me the last token that passed between you and me. Oh, Gregory, don't you remember that night on yon lean hill, when we both met together, which I'm sorry now to tell. The rain falls on my yellow locks, the dew it wets my skin. My babe lies cold within